Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ron Howard, Lynwyn Brennan, Joe Johnston, Phil Tippett, Dennis Murin, and Rose Dagnan.
Returning with ILM was, of course, great with special effects. Although it was exciting to see that some of the breakthrough ideas in sort of technology were beginning to present themselves.
Yeah, they started on Solo,
and they did start on Solo.
You mentioned one of the innovations that ILM was doing on Solo. Do you have an example?
Well, it was sort of the beginning of the volume. We had a version of that for the Millennium Falcon cockpit.
We had LED screens for the jump into hyperspace. We had that generated on the screen, so we got lots of shots in camera, which I think is the key to stagecraft.
Definitely solved a problem because you didn't have to talk the actor through this scene, and it was there for them.
You had a really great working relationship with Ralph McQuarrie that I would love to hear a little more about.
Ralph always let me have the final word on what the design was. And he would take sometimes my drawings, my designs, and sketch them up and send them back to me. And I would change them. It was a really symbiotic relationship where we would just sort of feed off each other's ideas.
I think that there is this sense of, if you're not a computer graphics whiz, or that there's no place for you in visual effects. But actually, we have fine artists, we have sculptors. Yes, we have some actual rocket scientists and computer graphics whizzes, but we also have fashion designers. And it doesn't matter what your talent is. There is a place for you in the visual effects business.
How has 3D printing affected? Because before you had to hand sculpt figures, but now you can just print them out. So
yeah,
how has it?
It's been huge. You can 3D print out negative molds, and if you're doing we're doing a bunch of stop motion stuff for The Mandalorian.
Even for concept, you can do concept art in 2D. You can do 2D on a computer screen or whatever. But then just take it the next step and print it out as a concept, and everybody learns so much more from it, being able to hold it up and look at it and seeing it in different light and everything. It's really valuable.
Is there any technology that's currently, spurring new ideas that have you guys fascinated?
A lot of AI technologies, figuring out how we can automate and really get more natural reactions from characters that we make.
Anything you want to put on a screen is possible to capture. Even if you go back to the days of building a model and shooting it against a blue screen, it's a tool for telling a story.
What's really interesting is you guys have all been here at LIM from the start. And so now there is a new generation of directors like Bryce Dallas Howard, who's being kind of hailed as the best of this franchise in a way. So how does that feel, getting to see who comes into the franchise now and kind of takes over at ILM and bringing these stories to life?
It's a joy to work with new people all the time, particularly people like Bryce and like Deb Chow, and people who come in with new approaches, new perspectives. And when we're filming on a stagecraft volume, for example, that is something that is a very different way of filmmaking, and seeing the enthusiasm that people embrace such a different way of filmmaking, and then add to it. That's what I always find so gratifying about the series space, because we get to work with more directors in the series, in the episodic space, and they each bring a different perspective and make it better every single time, and that is what is so wonderful. And Bryce is a perfect example of it.
Martin Scorsese once said, if you want to know the future of filmmaking, go visit George Lucas and Industrial Light and Magic, which I thought was such a compliment. But I think this series is all about that, because George Lucas set out to revolutionize the process of filmmaking, and that has been done. It's digital. You can do anything.
Just piggybacking off what Rachel said about Bryce, Ron, when you saw her first episode of The Mandalorian that she directed, how did you react? How did you feel?
She loves what's happening, in getting into work with John and Dave and everyone at Lucasfilm. She's learning a lot. She's growing a lot, and she can feel it. And she also loves the fact that it's a show that has ideas, but it really is for the fans. It really is to try to connect with the audience, and that there's a very clear cut. There's a respect for that audience, and that gives her something to kind of understand and aim for, that she feels that she likes.
I was curious what kind of conversations or debates happen in determining what becomes digital effects and what becomes practical effects.
Well, I think we can all probably answer this one. I think we have a constant mantra within ILM and Lucasfilm: best tool for the job, right? And so it all comes back to what is the emotional connection you want to make in the scene, and what's the best way to get that. And that can be, how do you get the best performance out of the talent on screen? And then how can you best execute the moment that you want to tell in the story? And so different tools do that better. There are moments in The Mandalorian where Grogu is a puppet and adorable, and and we can achieve the story point with a puppet, and then have that interaction with the actors on the screen and have that immediate response. And then there are times when you can't do it practically, and you have to do it digitally, but because of the action that needs to take place. And that's where you see the magic, I think, within ILM, the fact that they're able to get that emotional feeling and living and breathing response within a digital character, and that just happens to be the right choice to make for that particular shot. And then it's a constant conversation with the director, with the visual effects crew, with the practical crew, and as to what is the best approach that's going to achieve that moment.
Ron and Joe, you guys have been directing movies through these various almost generations of technology available. How has having all of these tools in your toolbox changed your job now that you can seemingly do anything?
Well, for me, it is that possibility of kind of whatever's in your mind, whatever's in the mind's eye. You have a much better chance of actually realizing that. But there's some other practical factors. Being able to help suggest an environment on an exterior shooting day, you may not quite get the feeling that you want, but you can, if you get close to it, digital effects can help you sort of complete the image in a way. Or if you only capture it for a fleeting period of time, but you must finish the scene for practical reasons that day, you can go ahead and finish, and you have a much better chance of actually creating the continuity. Also, mini stunts are suddenly made much safer, simply because it's not a big deal. This is not fancy. This is not wildly creative. But to take wires out and do that wire removal, well, that makes a lot of very difficult stunts, much safer, and even possible for actors to do themselves. That's exciting. Still, you do have this creative conversation, because when actors can deal with something in a tactile way, of course it's much simpler for them. It's going to feel like a more honest moment. Sometimes the textures of sets and so forth are easier to deal with, better for cinematographers to light, better for, again, actors to be able to interact with, lean against, and so forth. So all of those kinds of decisions come into play. And then there's the question of money, because sometimes it's a huge savings to do it digitally, or sometimes it's a huge savings to find a location that already exists. and make a small extension or build physically. So, it's just, as you said, right tool for the job. Joe, what would you say?
Well, I always try to keep that vision like it's made out of rubber, because when you start shooting a movie, it's never going to be exactly what you thought it was going to be, and it's, something's going to break every day, and things are going to go wrong, or an actor's not going to show up. And if you can sort of keep it very flexible, then sometimes you can determine, hey, how should I do this? Should this be a puppet, or should the shot be in the movie at all? Or should it be a shadow on the wall that goes by and you don't even know what it is? So, and it's sort of a different answer, but I just try to keep everything sort of loose and know that I'm going to find a way to get the shot or get the performance or complete the scene.